So I am getting really sick of the current state of gaming. In particular, how expensive everything is. It's getting absolutely insane. We are in the first console generation where consoles are going up in price, and not just the modern consoles. We're talking last generation consoles. Their prices are going up. If you didn't know, Nintendo announced that they're raising again the prices of their stuff, and the Switch 2 is getting a price increase, and along with that, the original Switch is getting a price increase, and this is absolutely absurd. And I remember when PlayStation announced the PlayStation Slim, every other Slim console before has been cheaper, because as time goes on, tech is less expensive. There's no need to charge the same price for tech that is now becoming older. And a Slim console always came out with the intention of it being a more affordable console for people to jump on to whatever generation we were on, who maybe were hesitant because of the price point. And we're now seeing that just is not the case. And along with that, Nintendo, and I will blame them because they are the ones who have chosen to do this, have hiked up their game prices, which means that game prices will go up. And they didn't just hike it up by like $10 more. They hiked it up by 20. Then instead of going to the 70, they went right to the 80. And it's absolutely absurd, the state of gaming. And so I wanted to dive into it a little bit on my thoughts, and in particular, the three reasons why I think this corporate greed is damaging massively to the game industry, and people have no idea what they're doing. That what happened in the movie industry, where movie theaters kept increasing prices to the point that it pushed away the casual moviegoer, or unless you're really excited for a movie, you're like, I'll wait for it on streaming, is happening to gaming. And so let's dive into the three big reasons why I think that this kind of price gouging, this kind of corporate greed that we're seeing, and along with all of these massive layoffs, everybody's raising their prices. They're talking about record profits, and they're laying off mass amounts of staff. It makes me so furious. Let's dive into this thing. So first off, this is making games an elite hobby that's turning into essentially like golf, where you need to have a good amount of money in order to golf. You need to do the same now to be a gamer. That gone are the days of people's friends in elementary school having the same consoles and being able to keep up with each other, and just the average kid being able to pick up a console. When I was in grade 2, I saved up enough money to buy for myself a GameCube. That is not possible. I don't know what side hustle some kid would be doing to get to a place where they could do that now. And not only that, let's talk about adults. The cost of living continues to go up. Like, let's not kid around here that it is more expensive to live now than it has ever been. And gaming is not just following the market trend, they're going way above what's normal, to the point that it prices people out, that it makes gaming an elite hobby. You have to have a good amount of wealth in order to be able to do it. And I just think that that's bad for the industry. I think to make it into this thing that's incredibly expensive, especially Nintendo games like that are intended for kids, to ask families to be shelling out $80 per game is absolutely absurd, and I think it's going to damage the industry. Secondly, I think that this stops creativity. That for games to cost this amount of money, it pushes away people from buying or purchasing games that are risks, or purchasing games that maybe aren't the AAA titles that are a tried and true IP or a tried and true developer, and it makes people not willing to take risks, because it's one thing to take a risk on a game when it was $50, but when it's $80, that's a big risk. And do you want to part with that much cash for something that you don't even know you will like? And so what this does is it stops creativity in the games industry, because the AA games are just going to disappear. You'll still have indie games, because you'll have developers who can make those games for fairly cheap, and charge fairly cheap for them, and people will be willing to take a risk on a fairly cheap game. And then you'll have AAA games that are these multi-million-dollar ventures by these big companies using big IPs that people will pick up, and they'll be exclusives or must-haves for their consoles. But the AA games, those are going to disappear, and they have disappeared. That we've seen a lack of creativity. That a lot of games now are either sequels or are already existing IPs, or they're games that don't really have any new or unique mechanics to them. They're just kind of the tried and true formula of what's worked before, and we're going to see more of that because game developers aren't able to take that risk. That the push for games to be more expensive makes people not want to buy them, not want to take that risk, which then makes these AA games that would have been in the category of like the original Assassin's Creed games. There's no way you could make a game like that today on a risk, with a gameplay risk like that, an IP risk like that would eventually turn into a AAA franchise. Any kind of small AA game just can't exist because people aren't willing to spend the money to be able to purchase that and risk it, and therefore studios aren't willing to risk putting in the money to develop them, and people are expecting these massive profits from games, and it costs so much to make games now that it's essentially killed that. And that games are now doing what the movie industry has done, which is they're not taking as many risks anymore, that they kind of want to create the tried and true formula that can get butts in seats. And so the movie industry has lost a lot of its creativity, a lot of its uniqueness, because the movie theaters have increased the pricing, that you don't really want to go to a movie unless it's something that's really worth seeing, something that is a big IP that's got a lot of hype behind it, that you don't want to miss out on. And that's really the only thing people go to the movies for anymore, which killed a lot of those smaller films that weren't just indie films, but were the films in between, because nobody would go to them and nobody would fund them. The same thing's happening in the gaming industry, where those smaller games are not existing and people aren't buying them because it's too expensive. If I have to buy several titles a year that are at that $80 price point, I don't have the money laying around anymore. I don't have that extra cash to pick up a AA game. I maybe will pick up an indie game, but I'm not going to waste my money on that, which means that studios aren't able to create those things, which means a lot of the creativity disappears because studios don't want to take risks in new mechanics or on new IPs, or on something that maybe hasn't been seen before. And so this is actually killing creativity in the industry. And lastly, it makes it difficult to enjoy being a gamer. It's frustrating to feel like the corporations and the brands that you want to support and have brought you great experiences are trying to take advantage of you, whether it's microtransactions, whether it's price gouging, whether it's needlessly increasing prices dramatically despite record profits, laying off thousands of staff members despite record profits, laying off thousands of staff members despite barely pumping out games. Like, this console generation has been so disappointing because there have been so few games worth picking up, that the PS5 situation is incredibly sad, and they're still laying people off, which means development time is going to take even longer. And they're not laying it off due to cost, because they're making money. That there has been a shift in the industry where gaming at one point was something that people did because they loved games, and it's turned into a corporate overlord thing where it's now about making money and making the most amount of money possible, and it's making it not enjoyable to be a gamer. It feels like game companies that make games for the love of the game are getting more rare, and that people are corporatizing this, and capitalizing on it and turning it into an industry that is trying, instead of to serve customers, to give them a great experience, is trying to take advantage of customers, and get as much as they can, and trying to find where the floor is, where they're able to take as much from us that we'll put up with. And it just doesn't make it an enjoyable experience. It doesn't make console launches exciting. It doesn't make having these consoles exciting, because games are barely coming out, and the ones that do are constantly breaking your bank. That it really is a frustrating situation, because I think it's hurting the game industry. I think it's hurting this medium and this platform, and I think that people are willing to tolerate it because we love games and we love these experiences. And it's hard for us to put our money where our mouth is and not pick up something when it's unreasonable, and so these companies are just continually able to take advantage of us as consumers. But there will come a point where there is a tipping point, and I think we've seen that with the AA game, but we will see it somewhat soon with consoles and IPs in general. And I don't know what'll happen. I don't know if it'll go the route of the movie industry, where they just double down on the price gouging and go, oh, because profits are down, we need to increase this medium even more, which actually drives more people away, or whether they do the wiser thing and pull back a bit, and make gaming more accessible again, and make gaming something that everybody can do. Make gaming something that creativity can thrive in. Make gaming something that's enjoyable as a consumer to be a part of. I don't know. But right now we're on the trajectory that greed is going to win. And because I've watched this in the movie industry, it makes me very nervous. Because I think if it continues in this direction, gaming as we've known it up till now is dead. That whatever the peak of gaming was, which was probably the PS4, Xbox One era, or the PS3, 360 era, was somewhere in there, is past, and we will enter into a dark age of gaming, which it feels like we're already on the cusp of. So that's my rant. I was really frustrated hearing that Nintendo news, and so there you go. You got it unloaded. Corporate greed. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts, whether you think I'm being too pessimistic and too intense about this, whether you think gaming companies have good reasons for doing this kind of thing, or whether you think that corporate greed is winning the day, but this stuff is becoming, honestly, getting to a point of being unacceptable, and getting to a point that it's ruining being a fan of video games. Let me know in the comment section down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that junk, and I will see you guys in the next one.